welcome episode to the Traumatized Earth. This episode is the morally superior have no ethics. I'm pretty sure I came up with that phrase. I haven't heard it before. I searched for it. I asked AI. Not a lot of talk about it. And then, well, anyway, I wrote, let's see. I shouldn't say I wrote that, but yeah, so anyway, I generated some content on the subject, and we'll go through that, and then I want to go through some videos that came up. Maybe we'll watch and do a little commentary on the videos, but the gist of it is, let's see. Hold on. So basically, the morally superior have no ethics. It's in the belief that one is holding the high ground. In itself is a is a foul, is a I just lost the word. And is most likely a trauma-based thing. There's no humility, there's no learning. The word nuance has become very popular. I've heard it a few times. It stopped education. You don't have to learn anything if you're already the superior one. Everyone's below you. Everyone's beneath you. You're looking down on everybody. You need to control everybody. You're the only one that should be allowed to control people because you're obviously right. And this position must be trauma-based. It's a trauma-driven defense. It stops truth-seeking, outside information, nuance, or dissenting views are dismissed as threats. Curiosity dies. Confirmation bias reigns. One sits closed off at a self-proclaimed peak of truth, making real learning or correction nearly impossible. Yeah. Something so limiting has to be driven by trauma, because you're in a fight or flight state. Your vision is narrowed. Cognitive reasoning and logic are turned off. You're surviving, or you're checking out, right? So it's a coping mechanism for reality. And you'll see this moral superiority show up in heated conversations, heated debates, like out on the street. Now, in a closed setting and someone thinks they're morally superior, that could be different. Like, let's say a Christian conservative who simply won't acknowledge the nuance coming from the other side. And I'm going to do a separate video on that. It's going to be, specifically for the Christian conservative, it's going to be the am I my brother's keeper? Am I my brother's keeper? So that will address this one. I think is more, leans a little bit more left, this particular video, addressing the moral superiority, particularly of the left. Not that you don't see it in other places, but it's extremely pronounced. I mean, there's probably nothing like it than in the last 10 years or so. On the right side of history, but acts hypocritical or cruel in the name of their cause. Have you ever noticed how the loudest moral voices often cause the most harm? Explain that moral superiority isn't real ethics. It's usually a trauma response when someone feels broken or unworthy inside. They overcompensate by becoming perfectly good on the outside. So, and we'll get into it, like the fear or the shadow that drives this. It's like, I often think it's only a perfect person is allowed to be loved or deserves to be loved. This is the message that they took on as a child. If I'm perfect, I'll get the love. When someone feels broken or unworthy inside, they overcompensate by becoming the perfectly good on the outside. Their cause becomes armor that protects them from looking at their own wounds. Maybe. Negative core beliefs, I'm not good enough, get flipped into I'm morally perfect. AI's been using this loyal guardian shadow. It kind of combined two ideas of mine, that your shadow is a loyal guardian. And so it just started using that phrase. The shadow projects all the bad parts of themselves onto the other side. Emotions get turned into judgments because raw feelings aren't socially acceptable. It's very socially acceptable to say a judgment. So to go, you're a fascist. What it's not socially acceptable is to say, I don't feel safe. When you're here, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe invites a conversation. Claiming somebody to be a fascist is a roadblock. It's a dead end. There's no way out. You're proclaiming it as fact, despite the person's protests to the contrary. If you were to say, when you're here, I don't feel safe, the other person may engage that, and maybe even that protecting you, which is the last thing this person wants, is to make friends. So judgments are socially acceptable, whereas feelings aren't. This creates black and white thinking where nuance feels like betrayal. I hope this becomes a more popular way to phrase the nuance. Nuance is betrayal. It's already out there. Why it destroys real ethics. Real ethics needs humility, nuance, and self-reflection. Moral superiority kills all three. It blocks learning. If I'm already right, why would I listen to anyone else? It justifies harming others because the cause is so important. That might be the biggest danger of moral superiority, is that you can really justify hurting other people if you're doing it like They talk about like, could you kill baby Hitler? Right? It, Here's a baby who hasn't technically done anything yet, but the moral superiority, the knowledge of being right over this life and saving the others would dictate that it would be okay to kill a baby. Kind of crazy, huh? It turns personal pain into public performance. Where good people did, good people in quotations did questionable things while feeling righteous. Keep it balanced. Show it happens on all sides. It does happen on all sides. I thought the COVID response was leveraged by the left to do anything to make Donald Trump look bad. So they were willing to take a response that would have been broadcast to the entire planet as what is America doing, and rather than really think about that critically, it was more the calculus was anything that makes Trump look bad. We will respond to this in a way, no matter what happens, as long as it makes Trump look bad. And the hypocrisy and the double standards to the general public, like teachers being paid to stay home, but grocery clerks working double shifts at essentially minimum wage never got like they didn't get a government, like out of all the people who should have gotten bonuses were the people who are actually working, right? How could you produce nothing and get paid for it while people who were producing twice as much were punished? So it's just, nothing will blind you more than being right. I keep having to ask it, what does tribal shortcut mean again? Tribal shortcut was, okay, it's a technique that I was talking about with AI about how to, when you catch yourself in shadow, how you can quickly shortcut it. Tribal in this sense is negative because it's like a primitive way of coping, and then the shortcut is just a quicker way to go, oh, I'm doing that thing again. I'm in shadow, driving. Shadow's driving the bus again, and I'm using outdated childlike coping mechanisms in an adult world. Judgment peeling to trace harsh judgments back to your own wounds. Okay, so anytime that you're using a judgment word, convert it into a feeling. So it's, you could even say, I hate you. And then, okay, that's a judgment. What's the feeling? The feeling is, I don't feel safe. When I see this thing that you're doing, it brings up this thing from my past, which I hate. I hate this thing that you bring up about my past, that I have to look at it. When I see you, it gets triggered, and I hate that. So I don't hate you. I hate that that you're bringing this up for me. So converting judgments into feelings, very honest feelings, could be the meditation for like moral superior. Like anytime you're feeling morally superior, or you're catching yourself behaving as if you're the moral superior, take a judgment in that moment about this person, this place, this thing, and convert it into a feeling. Dissipate the energy from the feeling and see if the judgment goes away. See if you can have a better conversation with nuance. True morality isn't loud, it's humble. Okay, so here's a clear and well-defined list why moral superiority people often have no ethics. Ethics requires humility. They have arrogance. Real ethics begins with I could be wrong. Moral superiority replaces that with absolute certainty. When you believe you're already on the side of good, you stop questioning yourself, which is exactly when you're most likely to do harm. They project their shadow. They don't deal with their own rage, selfishness, or darkness. Instead, they project it onto others. That's interesting. So it's like accompanying the sense of morally superior. One must all, in order for you to truly be morally superior, you would have to be free of your own darkness. You'd have to be like, you have to be not possessed by your own past, your own darkness. And so in order for that to be true, for somebody to be morally superior, they would then have to purge the fact that everybody has this, but of course they don't because they're pure. They'd have to cast that onto the people that they're judging. So their moral superiority, what comes first, the egg or the chicken? Anyway, they're dumping their impurities onto the subject of their disdain. They project it onto others and attack it there. They're literally fighting with their own unknown traits in other people while feeling righteous for doing so. Wow. Sometimes you could see that. You could see like especially when there's physical contact. It's almost like they're beating the parts of themselves that they hate. Like you could see them bite their lip. Their ethics serve emotional protection, not truth. The cause isn't really about justice, it's about soothing old wounds. The moral stance protects them from feeling unworthy, powerless, or defective. The moment they cause conflicts with actual ethics, huh, the emotional need wins every time. Uh, the moment the cause conflicts with actual ethics, the emotional need wins every time. Yeah, so while fighting for your cause and that cause bumps up against a point where it has to act truly ethical, the emotions take over and they compromise on their ethics to further the cause unethically, even though that cause contradictorily or hypocritically is described as the moral superior cause. Something like that. They turn emotions into judgments. Raw feelings, especially I don't feel safe, get transformed into socially acceptable righteous anger. They're not expressing pain, they're performing moral outrage. This hides the real emotions and blocks genuine connection or understanding. Just checking for the cats, I don't know where they went. there's a really big place to connect on an emotion. Imagine if people came up to you and they're like, I don't feel safe. I don't think you'd have to say that many times to your opposition before you would find enough people to engage that and say, well, let's work on that together. Let's if if we both have an agenda worthy of um, making bigger or getting out into the world, you'd have to start with safety. They can't learn or change. If you're morally superior, education becomes impossible. Why would you listen to somebody if you've already decided it's bad or wrong? This intellectual closure makes growth and self-correction impossible. They replace accountability with performance. Real ethics demands personal accountability. Morally superior offers social reward instead. Likes, status, group belonging. They become addicted to being seen as good rather than actually doing good. They justify harm in the name of good. Because the cause feels so righteous, they give themselves permission to lie, shame, cancel, or hurt people. The morally superior, the more superior they feel, the more cruelty they can rationalize. A little bit of a side note. Um, I I was listening to an audiobook about how, well, it was the Middle East in general, going back, roughly couple thousand years. Well, over 1,000 years, just about 1,000 years, to some of the Crusades and stuff like that. Um, there was a point where it was talking about how um, Islam was allowed to lie, and so they the Christians surrendered a castle and they negotiated a truce. And so the the sultans, or the kings of that at that time, made the agreement, and they said, yeah, everybody can leave, nobody will be hurt, which was the terms of the surrender. And then when they all came out, of course, they killed them all, raped them, and which actually happened quite a bit. And, and they said, hey, we're allowed to lie and cheat and steal for the progression of our cause, because our cause is righteous. And there's no, you're not, if you're lying to a bad person, it's not really a lie, right? And so this is the danger of the position of moral superiority. It's also the danger of uh, the thing that you hold your accountable against, right? So if your God says no, like lying is the ultimate thing that you can't do, no matter what, or your God says no, you can never lie, but to this group of people you can. Um, Logic and reason breaks down when there's nothing real enough to leverage against it. Uh, something that you're more scared of. I see, at this point you are the top of the pyramid. There's nothing higher than your perspective, and so you're accountable to no other thing other than yourself. It's a very dangerous place to be, particularly if you're wrong. Like, let's just say you're actually wrong, and that's why it's so dangerous, is that you probably are. It's They justify harm in the name of good. Because the cause feels so righteous, they give themselves permission to lie, shame, cancel, or hurt people. The morally superior feel, the more superior they feel, the more cruelty they can rationalize. The nervous system, their nervous system is driving, not their values. They're often in a flight or flight reaction from old trauma. What looks like principled standards is frequently just overactive threat system looking for an enemy to fight. So this is just me fighting with AI to like get a some content rolling. Core negative self-beliefs behind moral superiority. I'm fundamentally bad, defective, unworthy. The person feels broken or shameful at their core. Moral superiority flips into I'm one of the good ones. By being loudly virtuous or on the right side, they temporarily silence the voice that says they're defective. I'm powerless, invisible. My needs don't matter. I don't matter. That's a big one. I don't matter. Early experiences of helplessness or being ignored create desperate need for control and significance. Moral crusading gives them a sense of power and importance. They become the hero, the righteous one, the voice for justice. I'm unlovable unless I'm good, perfect. Love and acceptance are conditions in childhood. The moral persona becomes a performance of perfection, so they can finally feel worthy. Of belonging and admiration. The world is dangerous and people will hurt me. This feels hyper vigilance and the need to identify villains. By labeling others as bad, they create a clear enemy and position themselves as safe and moral. I must be in control or I will be destroyed. Moral certainty and ideological rigidity become a form of control. Nuance feels terrifying because it threatens the fragile structure that they've built to feel safe. That's interesting. This one's kind of like this comes first. Like this statement here comes first. The fragile structure they've built to feel safe. Therefore, I must be in control. So first, the building of the structure to feel safe. Repressed rage and aggression turned into righteous anger. Selfishness or greed projected onto the greedy capitalists, the selfish anti-vaxxers. Weakness and vulnerability. Attacked in others as snowflakes or weak-minded. Shame and guilt. Externalized as moral condemnation of others. Fear of being abandoned or rejected. Turned into tribal loyalty tests and purity spirals. If I become perfectly good and fight the bad people, I won't be hurt again. I'll be loved, and I'll never have to feel that original pain. This is why challenging their moral stance feels like a personal attack. It threatens to expose the original wound the guardian has been protecting for decades. Moral superiority is not rooted in genuine ethics. It's a plim- it's primarily a trauma response and a psychological defense mechanism. It gives the person a sense of control, identity, righteousness, while protecting them from facing their own wounds, shadow, and vulnerability. Because it feels morally good, it becomes extremely difficult to challenge. Trauma as the root. Personal trauma and negative core beliefs, I'm unworthy, defective, powerless, are compensated for by flipping into I'm morally good, I'm on the right side, everyone else is bad. This creates a strong emotional playoff and sense of safety. Projection and shadow. Unacceptable parts of the self, rage, fear, selfishness, weakness are projected outward onto the other side. The person attacks in others what they cannot accept in themselves. Personal protection over truth. The moral stance is not primarily about justice or accuracy. It serves to soothe old wounds and avoid feeling the original pain of unworthiness or powerlessness. Emotions transformed into judgments. Raw, socially unacceptable feelings, I don't feel safe, shame, helplessness, are converted into righteous, socially rewarded judgments and outrage. Blocks learning and truth seeking. Once moral superior, the person sits at the pinnacle of truth. Dissenting views or new information are dismissed as coming from bad or inferior people, making genuine education or growth nearly impossible. Performance over accountability. They prioritize being seen as good, virtue signaling. We did this. But it started off as, no. I was looking for, okay, yeah, so that's about that. I thought I compiled, in some ways we got to that. It was, let's see, this particular part, trauma as the root. I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. So moral superiority is driven by these negative beliefs about myself or the world. I'm not safe. The world's not safe. Um, these are childlike responses to traumatic events, and the moral superiority is the coping mechanism hasn't looked at or resolved any of these things. Let's do this. Is this where we are? Okay. Yeah, so trying to shrink. Well, I shrank it, so I hope it shows up good for you guys. I just put, let's see, hopefully I can capture the audio. Oh, I never tested it. Ugh. Hmm. Well, maybe I could do it right now. No. Well, if I didn't capture the audio from the YouTube, that's going to suck, but we got this far. If at this point there's no audio for the YouTube, just turn it off. If it is there, thank you for getting this far. Let's see. So here's a few. This is cool because these people, like, she's recognizable, and she is here, and this girl did one, and it's nice to see. Let's see. Hold on. So, I mean, the conversation's out there. Let's see. Uh, let's see if I could see how many. Whoa, 300,000 views. Wow, 6 months ago. Wait a second. Oh, this. Wait a. Oh no, I thought this was way more recent. Uh, okay. Hold on. For some reason, I thought a lot of these were recent, but I mean, look, we're going back unearned moral superiority 9 years ago, which is roughly when I started. A little bit more than that, but roughly when I started my psychological journey. Um, the illusion of moral superiority. This one looks interesting. 5 months ago. I was almost certain these videos were produced much more recently. $5 months ago. Huh. Well, let's see. Um, I mean, we could play more of this. I guess the reason why I'm bringing all this up is to show you that, hey, there's stuff out there, there's information out there, people are talking about it in a very similar way. My take on it is that it's driven, um, the fuel. Well, for the most part, the show will always kind of contend this way. The fuel of it is driven by negative beliefs about themselves, acquired, or the world, acquired at a young age. And it's possible to bring attention to that, and then the fuel dissipates. And the reason that's important is, the people will just be doing other things with their lives, making their lives better, which makes the world a better place. Or if they continue to engage on this whatever topic they're on that they feel so superior about, they will do it in a much healthier, productive way. And so it's not about it. It's about making people more effective in the things that they want to do, whether it's do something else completely or engage in the ideology, but be very effective at it, and not caustic. Because no matter what, how strong your feelings are about it, if you're yelling and screaming and calling other people names, you're hurting the cause. You really are. Yeah. And so this was more to, maybe a future video we'll just do reaction videos to videos like this. But for now, this was kind of like an introduction to just the concept of moral, my particular concept, which I hope I get coined on, is the moral superior have no ethics. Episode 2. All right, guys. Bye.